Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Okay, now it is time to introduce our main speaker for tonight, Terry.
Okay, my name's Terry. I'm an alcoholic. I want to thank Laura, wherever you are, can't see, on purpose. I want to thank Laura for asking me to come and share. It's always an honor and a privilege to do anything in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I want to welcome all the newcomers and invite you or encourage you to stay. This is truly the easier, softer way. Once you've gotten here, it's just easier to stay because it'll never be the same out there. And I want to wish all the birthday people a happy birthday. And I'm right with Jackie. I celebrated 30 years of sobriety on February 15th. I had a rough Valentine's Day. It just drove me into the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous. And it's just not even possible. You know, when I say that out loud, it doesn't even feel like anything to me because it's just so impossible that I could be here, whatever the day count is, up to 30 years. I came to Alcoholics Anonymous when I was 21 years old, not by choice. I had gotten into quite a bit of trouble with the courts and the law and of a couple of states, and they were trying to decide what to do with me, and I got sent to this rehab place in Pasadena called Impact. That's where I met Nancy. She was my roommate at that place. We were these two little rocker chicks from Hollywood, both kind of wondering what the hell we were doing in this place with convicts. And I was kind of like Goldie Hawn and Private Benjamin. You know, I showed up with my luggage and my rollers for the 4 hairs that I had on my head. And, you know, I wanted to know where my room was. And that... That kind of began my journey in Alcoholics Anonymous, of which I'd never really heard of before. I'd never tried to stop using. I'd been using since I was 11 years old. I wasn't a hope to die drunk addict at 11, but, but it wasn't too long after that I was. And, you know, I just figured, in fact, it's funny, you know, I'm 53 years old, which is, I'm not sure what's more shocking, 30 years sober or 53 years old. They kind of go in sync. And I never planned to live this long, you know? I mean, I really, truly didn't. And I didn't plan to live this long even in sobriety. I mean, it just wasn't in my consciousness. So I wish I had. My life would be a little different right now. But so anyway, and pardon me for jumping around, but I don't get out much these days, so not quite as succinct as I usually am. But anyway, so I go to Impact. I had this federal judge tell me that I wasn't fit to live among human beings, which was a little startling. And they sent me to Impact, and that began the journey of Alcoholics to Alcoholics Anonymous. I wasn't an alcoholic back then. I was a drug addict. I'd been using heroin since I was 16, and drinking. You know, it's Alcoholics Anonymous. I drank all the time. I just didn't pay any attention to it, because, I mean, come on. shooting dope. Like, who cares about some gin and tonics? You know, but I had a choice. I could go to prison, actually, not just prison, I could go to a federal penitentiary for 10 years, or I could go to Impact. And I was out of my mind, but I wasn't stupid. And so I went to Impact, and it was a nightmare. And mostly it was a nightmare because I didn't really get that alcohol piece. I didn't get that I had a disease that told me I didn't have one. I didn't get that there really wasn't any difference between heroin or gin. Well, not even the base it's in. But anyway, there wasn't any difference between those things. For me, it was much, I would have rather been anything than an alcoholic. But a drug addict was okay. It was kind of cool. It was okay. And as a result, after I got out of that place, all those everything settled down. You know, the court cases got handled. I didn't go to the penitentiary. You know, I got probation. Everything was okay. And then I got thrown out of this place, and I stayed sober, and I was going to meetings. You know, I'm 21. They're unlike one of the birthday people talked about coming to AA, and everybody's really beautiful, and they wanted what they had. I think it was John. When I came to AA, and I think Nancy would probably attest to this, everybody was old. You know, it was like old people, and there weren't a lot of drug addicts or people that at least identified with that. And so I didn't really quite have that experience. But there was an upside to that. Being one of the younger people around, there was 6 of us, I think, I got a lot of action. And a lot. And I'm kind of a 50-yard dasher, so I can do anything for a short period of time. And as long as there's a lot going on and I'm getting a lot of attention and, you know, getting filled up from the outside in, I'm good to go. And literally. And I got to tell you, that worked for almost a year. And then what happened was the exact same thing that happened when I was 11 years old, going into 7th grade. And that was that these big feelings of shame and separateness and not good enough and self-loathing started just encompassing me. And I just couldn't get laid enough for it to go away, you know? And that's really the truth. I couldn't go to enough dances. I couldn't run around enough to stay ahead of those feelings anymore. And I felt pressure and a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear about what I might have to do. And that's what happened when I was 11. At 11, I thought, oh my God, I'm in junior high, I'm gonna go to high school, and then I'm gonna have to go to college, because that was the expectation in my family. And then I'll have to get married, and then I'll have to have kids, and oh my God, and I gotta get loaded, you know. And thank God I got to do that and check out. And thank God I lived to be able to start over again. Well, that's kind of what happened that year. As it got closer to the year, I felt more and more pressure, and I knew that I wasn't really buying this, you know? And I mean, you can only sleep with so many people, and then after a while, it's just all the same, you know? And I didn't think these meetings were fabulous. I thought they were great for you old people, but I didn't think they were so great for me. You know, and I knew that I was an addict and I couldn't do heroin anymore. I mean, you'd have to be a moron not to know that. But I didn't see any problem in drinking. You know, I didn't drink much anyway. I mean, what the hell? And you know what? I'm getting brainwashed by these people. I mean, they're just like zealots. You know, they're kind of extreme. And maybe, you know, maybe when I'm like 30. Maybe if I was old and had a family and all these responsibilities, I'd stay here too. But you know what? I can drink. So what I did is I had this boyfriend that I lived with, the rocker. you know, the first person in a long line of people that made me okay, hanging on their coattails. And he was playing at this club that was called the Starwood on Santa Monica Boulevard, and I realized that I owed him amends. It's funny, I hadn't picked up the big book or worked a step in the entire time that I'd been sober, but suddenly that 8th and 9th step was really important. And so I went into the Starwood and I told him I was sorry, and you know, I messed up your life, and what can I do? He had a new girlfriend, which was kind of presented a little bit of a problem, but it took a couple weeks to get rid of her, and we were back together. And he and I used together for a long time, and prior to that, and he was he wasn't clean, he wasn't in AA. I think he drank a little bit, and we had these long talks, and we both came to the conclusion that I had been brainwashed by the Moonies, and he knew it, and he was just kind of hanging tough until, you know, I came to, and we had a drink at the Villa Tosco, which is another place that isn't there anymore. And I had a strawberry margarita, which was evidence that I wasn't an alcoholic. And I sipped it, and I ordered food, and we chatted, and, you know, it was all very normal. The problem was, though, is that I didn't hear anything he said. It's like his mouth was moving, and I was nodding, and I just could hardly think of anything but, okay, could I have another sip of that drink? And you know, I don't want to drink too much, and food, eat some food, okay, another drink, yeah, he's talking, yeah, and nothing happened, except that I did know that that wasn't normal behavior. I knew that because I'd been here for a year, and despite myself, I'd heard something, and I knew that that wasn't normal behavior, but, you know, I'm pretty good about screwing it. You know, I'd already had a drink, it was too late, what the hell. But nothing particularly happened. I didn't take my clothes off, I didn't jump on the table, I kind of finished dinner. You know, we went home, and the deal was we weren't gonna take any drugs, and we were both very clear about what drugs were. Or I was really clear what drugs were. And then we got home, and his brother was a pothead. And he had a bunch of pot, because that's what potheads have. And this kind of phenomenal thing happened. I realized that pot wasn't a drug. It was an herb. And there's a point to this story. And if you've heard it before, you know, I don't know, make a grocery list or something, but it's very important for me to remember this, because this is the bottom line of my disease. So pot wasn't a drug, it was an herb, and so it was okay to smoke. So I smoked a joint. Nothing happened, except I got paranoid, just like I always did when I smoked pot. Because see, my drinking and using had nothing to do with partying, being a part of, participation. It was about checking out. It was getting as close to oblivion as I could without dying. And if that happened, well, that's a byproduct. I mean, I wasn't too frightened about that. Anyway, so I felt kind of paranoid, and we still had. He lived in the same house that we lived in together before I got sober. And we had, I don't know, many bottles of Valium in the closet, because we just had a lot of Valium all the time. And then I realized that Valium wasn't really a drug. It was a prescription that you took because you were tense and nervous. And I did have an anxiety problem, and it had just been exacerbated by that joint that I smoked. And it was okay to take a couple Valium because it wasn't really a drug. So I took 2 10-milligram Valiums, which will kind of knock you out if you haven't had anything in your system for a year, or at least it did me. And we were entertaining, we had guests, so it really wasn't okay to be too, you know, like loopy. And one of those guests had some Coke. And, you know, and then everybody knows that Coke's not a real drug. No offense to the Coke heads. But where I come from, Coke is filler. So I had a couple lines of Coke to kind of taper off those 2 Valiums that I took. And again, I was never somebody that wanted to be aware of anything, and it kind of made me a little jittery. And so I took another Valium, and I was off and running. See, that's the disease of alcoholism. You know, when I went to the Villa Tosco to have that drink, I was clear that I couldn't take any drugs. But alcohol wasn't a drug. Alcohol was alcohol. It was something else. It was this old people's thing. And I was only going to have a strawberry margarita because I wasn't an alcoholic. I mean, who would drink one of those things? They're really sweet. They make you sick. And I didn't finish it. The problem is that once I put that alcohol in my body, I couldn't predict my behavior, even with the best intentions and all the knowledge in the world. And trust me, I'm one of those research kind of people. You know, I don't make a move without knowing exactly what's going to take place, at least in my dreams, you know. And but alcohol is cunning, baffling, and powerful, you know. And so for me, at this point, and how I got sober again was that differentiation left. I knew that night when we went back home, when all was said and done, that there was no difference between alcohol or drugs, you know. And I also knew that I'd opened the gates to hell, and that was it, you know, because God forbid I'd call somebody. And Liz was my sponsor back then, and I'd call her and I'd leave a message, you know. When I knew she was at work, hi, it's Terry, checking in, just want you to know everything's good, I'm good, I hope you're okay, see you later, bye. You know, so I'd fulfilled my AA obligation to call my sponsor. And, you know, but I was really flying on my own. I was flying on my own. So for 6 months I was, the end of that story is after doing all that night, again, the commitment was we stay away from heroin. Clear. No way am I going to do that again. And one of the people that came over that night, because that's just how it works, was this connection that we had from Thailand that we hadn't seen in years. And he and my boyfriend had some kind of a conversation, and you know, and I had to make sure I didn't get in on that. And so for the entire week, Larry and I had idle chit-chat. How are you? How's the band? And all I'm thinking about is this guy. And what was that conversation about? Well, it ended up that he had left a little packet that this boyfriend had kept in his wallet. Clearly he wasn't like me, for a week. And we decided that it would be okay. It's been so long. What's the big deal? Couple lines, not even lines of this stuff, you know. What's the big deal? That was it. In a week I was strung out again. And that's alcoholism. See, it doesn't matter what you use. It's what it does. When I put a chemical in my body, I can't predict my behavior. Period. That's not true of everybody. It is true of me. It's probably true of everybody here, but it's not true of everybody out there. Anyway, so I was loaded for 6 months. Nothing happened. I didn't get arrested. There was plenty of stuff. I had plenty of money, and I was just dying. It didn't work anymore. It didn't, you know, those bad feelings I was having that I didn't want to work through or walk through didn't go away because I got loaded. They just got added to. And the jig was up, so I was going to blow my brains out because, you know, well, because I was going to, I felt like I couldn't be sober. I hated it here. I hated it. And I couldn't keep using it. It didn't work anymore. It didn't shut my head off. It didn't make me feel better. There just wasn't enough. And so I went to call this person to get a gun, and because I didn't have my guns anymore because I'd been sober, and you know, we'd get rid of our guns, and it's like no fun here. And And literally, I put my hand on the phone and it rang and I picked it up and it was Liz. And I was pretty hysterical. And she kept talking. She just talked. And I said, you know, I got to hang up. I'm going to blow my brains out. I'm not doing good. And people had called me from AA periodically to see how I was doing. I'd go, oh, great, no problem. How are you? You know. And with Liz, I told her the truth. And she just kept talking. And I told her I didn't want to go to AA. And I guess she was practicing that 11th tradition. Is it the 11th tradition? Attraction rather than promotion? Whatever it is. Anyway, 30 years, I still don't have them straight. And she didn't push AA. She didn't say, well, I'll meet you at a meeting. Because, see, I would have said, okay, and then I'd never show up. What she did say, she asked me if I needed some help. And I said, yeah, I do, but I'm not going to AA. And she gave me the number of this guy, this therapist, psychologist, and I called him, which is miracle number 2. I called this guy, and he answered the phone, and I told him what was going on, and he said, well, you know, you need to be in some kind of program, and I said, I'm not going back to Impact, forget it, because that's all that meant to me. I mean, I didn't know that there were detoxes, and I mean, I knew, but it just didn't occur to me. And he said, well, you know as well as I do that it's not going to do any good for you to come in here loaded. So here, I'm going to give you this number, you call them, they'll get you onto a detox, and you call me back, and we'll set it up. Miracle number 3, I called that place, and they got me in right away. To make a long story, that began my journey back. So to make a long story short, because this is, I think, what's important, and I believe it's one of the reasons why I've been able to stay sober a day at a time. I really believe that I came back here on the wings of an angel, you know. I believe that God worked all of that for me. Because what I later found out was that Liz had no idea who she was talking to for about the first 15 minutes, 20 minutes maybe, and I was hysterical, and believe me, well, this may be hard to believe, but I can be a little cranky. And she hung there. The number that she gave me to ended up being the commissioner, at the time he was the Commissioner of Drug and Narcotic Rehabilitation for Los Angeles County. And the number he gave me was the number for the Suicide Prevention Center detox that had a waiting list forever, you know. And by the end of that day, I was in his office, you know, with my first dose, thinking, what have I done? And at the end of that detox, and I sat in his office 4 days a week telling him how I hated AA and I'd never come back here no matter what he said. And he'd say, that's okay, you don't have to. And I'd say, okay, well, as long as you're clear, you're not going to trick me, I'm not going back. That's all we'd say, back and forth, back and forth. He must have wanted to blow his brains out. And we talked a little bit about my mom, because my mom was dying of cancer. And he, in addition to his being incredibly kind and patient and empathetic, he told me that there wasn't a whole lot I could do about the guilt that I felt in the moment regarding my mom, which was enormous. But I could do something about the guilt that I would incur. You know, so I did learn how to keep my mouth shut and change that relationship somewhat for the 2 years that she lived after I got sober the second time. So here we are 30 years later. When I came back into Alcoholics Anonymous, I worked the steps, and then everything got better. It's been a long road for me, a really long road for me. I had never done anything before I got here that was socially acceptable in any way. I'd never had a job that I could talk about or put on a resume. I'd never done anything, you know. I learned how to drive on LSD. I went all through junior high and high school, loaded out of my mind. You know, and you come here and, you know, I had to get a job and support myself and, you know, not talk at meetings and show up and do all those things. And so what I did is I got involved with somebody in about 2 weeks after I got here. or he got involved with me. I wasn't really capable of getting involved with anybody, but you know, he made an offer, and we went on an AA date, and a year later we broke up, or he went home. And I'm real grateful for him because he helped keep me sober. He took me to meetings and introduced me to people. Thank God he was kind and loving, and the intent was not just to, you know, fool around. He knew that I was fragile. In fact, later on he told me, I said, you know, I weighed 80 pounds when I came back, so I wasn't a vision for you. And I asked him one time, I said, what on earth would like compel you to go out with me at that point? And he said that he remembered the first time I was sober, and he knew I'd fill out, which I thought was kind of funny and poignant. He had 3 years. Anyway, what do I say about now? I've had to walk through every fear I've ever had and stay sober. Every fear I've ever had. Most of them have not been as great as they were in my head, in reality. But the biggest fear, I think, was pain, you know, and I just couldn't tolerate, disappointment. I have an 11-year-old daughter now, which is another unbelievable, I don't know what's, again, 53, 30 years sober, 11-year-old daughter. I don't know what's more mind-boggling to me. But I'm a soccer mom. just unbelievable, too. And this little girl, she just went to, she's starting on a club team now. And to get on this kind of a team, you have to audition, kind of. You know, all these kids get together and they play, and because it's moved up a notch from like a city kind of a, you know, an AYSO. I'm sure this makes no sense to anybody who doesn't have kids to play soccer, but just trust me, it's a big deal. And at one practice, she came home, and it's stressful because, you know, you're going to get picked. Or not. You might get kicked, you know, you might not get picked, and oh God, that's the worst. So we're driving home, and she starts crying, and she's the youngest one on the team. And she says, I don't think I'm gonna make the team. And I said, well, you know, well, why not, honey? She goes, because those girls are really good, and I'm not that good. And I said, well, you know, I don't know what to say, because they don't come with handbooks. And I said, well, honey, you know, I don't know what's going to happen, but, you know, you're a great soccer player. You are one of the younger kids, and if you don't get picked, it's just not a good fit. And there's other teams. I said, but you know what I think is really amazing, and I just can't even put into words how amazing this is that you're willing to try. See, I could never do that. I didn't have enough sense of myself at 11 years old to try. I'd already gotten lost, you know? I mean, she like auditioned for chorus. I mean, she's willing to take a risk. I was never willing to take a risk, other than with my life, you know? But to risk being disappointed, I'd rather die than risk being disappointed. And that seems to be what life is about. You know, being willing to risk not getting your way, you know? My inability to do that just about killed me, you know? Even in sobriety, it's just about killed me, you know? I just, a couple years ago, well, in 2004, I went back to school. That's always my answer when things get too tough. I go to school because it helps me focus on something other than me. That's after I've exhausted everything else. And I got through with graduate school, and I'm working on a new, you know, building a new profession because, again, I never counted on being alive this long. I didn't plan for the future. So I figure I've spent, my retirement up until I was 48. And so now when other people are getting ready to retire, I'm going to work finally. Because I exhausted every avenue, you know, and it really had to do, again, with fear of myself. I'm not enough, you know, and that he was going to save me. And I've had a lot of hymns. I've had a lot of knights in shining armor come and save me. And I got everything I wanted at one point in my life, everything. And the one thing, but I couldn't hold on to it for a lot of reasons. The main one being that the answer's not out there. You know, I love those 3 pertinent ideas, you know, that I am alcoholic and my life is unmanageable, that no human power can relieve my alcoholism, and that God can and will have sought. See, that no human power thing always kind of tricked me. Because it seems, you know, in the beginning, it seems like, yeah, you know. The irony is no matter what is new, it seems like, yeah. And then it doesn't, because those crummy feelings come back up, whatever they are. So anyway, when my last answer ended, and after I recovered from that black hole depression, I went back to school. And I can't remember what my point is. Oh, I finally got willing to take a risk, you know, with me, to take a risk with me. And every day it's a challenge, you know. People kind of look at me as a grown-up. And I guess I am a grown-up, but I don't always feel that way, you know. And my daughter's my inspiration, you know. She's able to try out for soccer teams and choruses and parts in little plays, you know. God forbid I couldn't give birth to a lawyer. And she can hold on to herself because I've made it safe for her to feel sad, you know, and help her get through that and go on because it's not a good fit. You know, I never learned that part. I don't know that there wasn't an opportunity to learn it, but I couldn't take that in, you know. Alcoholics Anonymous and the people in it, especially Liz and Nancy and Karen and Howard, who left. Bad example. They have loved me when I couldn't love myself. You know, Liz has been, you know, what I hope for everybody here is that you find a sponsor that you can have a 32-year relationship with, you know, and that you can fight with and disagree with and come back to and work it out and then fight again and get irritated and think they're wrong and go behind their back and, you know, and all that stuff. Because, see, that's what I missed anyway in my family. See, I didn't get to do that. I just checked out. And so coming to Alcoholics Anonymous and growing up here has given me the opportunity to do all those things that I didn't get to do for various different reasons. You know, addiction, I almost got what I wanted, except the wrong person would have died. Because who I am today is beyond my wildest dreams. My wildest dreams. Not everybody else's necessarily, but certainly mine, you know. There's nothing in my life today that I planned on that was in my, you know, I don't know if they still do this, but, you know, you write down the things you want to do. There's nothing in my life that I wanted to do, including be a mom. I was so frightened to have a child. I almost didn't have one. I didn't have my daughter till I was 41 years old because I was too scared, you know, that I couldn't show up, that she'd interfere, you know, it would interfere with my stuff, you know, with dating, with him, with, you know. She saved my life. She's my little higher power incarnate, you know, and I can't get in touch. I can do for her what I couldn't do for myself, and in return, it's done for me. Go figure. Who knew? Liz. Liz has been my mom, and my friend and my sister and my sponsor and all these things. You know, so that's what I hope for everybody in this room, that you get a Liz. You know, that you get to have somebody that will tell you the truth, or at least their truth, that has the courage to let you get mad at them until you can come around and not throw you away. And I've been able to not throw her away too, because we're both, the fact that we have had this relationship for as long as we have, it falls into the same category as I'm sober, I'm 53, I have a child. Because we're both runners. We're both cut and run. You know, cut and run. And most of the close people in my life, whether they're in it currently or not, they're all cut and runners too. You know, and we all go through those periods of time. That's what families do. They don't cut and run, though. And that's what I've been able to do, is be a family. Alcoholics Anonymous is my family. I'm not one of these, I don't love everybody here. I don't know everybody here. Loving somebody requires I know them, you know. But I care about everybody in Alcoholics Anonymous. We have this same deadly disease that tells us we don't have one, that wants to kill us. Mine still wants to kill me. Still wants to kill me. It just does it a little sneakier now. It doesn't say go get loaded. It says don't pay those bills. Go shopping. It says eat that cake at 4 in the morning. Yeah. It says slap your daughter. Shut her up. Anything to make me hate myself. Because see, if I hate myself long enough, then the door gets open. What's the point? What's the use? Might as well drink, you know, might as well. Anyway, I think I'm done. Thank you so much for my life. Thank you so much for all the pain and for all the support and all the love. And I want you to know, if you're young, which is pretty much everybody here, I've never had anybody tell me I was too young. I've never had anybody tell me they spilled more than I drank. I've never had anybody in Alcoholics Anonymous tell me I wasn't welcome because I took narcotics. You know, never. It has only been in the arms of Alcoholics Anonymous that I've been able to heal and be the person that I never thought I could be. So thank you so much.
Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.